So the Chattahoochee River serves as an excellent example of what happens when you severely alter a river basin, and particularly dams. When you dam a river, you always alter something. Obviously, you alter it from becoming from a river to some kind of a lake system. Sometimes really lake-like, sometimes more like slow river-like, depends on how the dam is operated and how much watershed the lake has above it. But much more than that, it basically affects everything downstream of the dam. Water flow, water temperature, the periodicity of flows, inhibits migration of aquatic animals up and down the river corridor. But the truth is that one dam generally on one river has relatively minimal impacts, unless that river happens to be the Colorado and the dam is Hoover. But that's an extreme example of one reservoir, one dam really altering everything. But when you usually have a problem is when you have what I call serial dams, and that would be serial with an S. In other words, there's a dam that backs up to the next dam that backs up to the next dam. That's when you have severe alterations of the aquatic environment, and usually that impact is felt with the original species complement. So the Chattahoochee River at one time had 14 dams along its course, starting with Lake Lanier and going all the way to Lake Seminole, right at the confluence with the Flint River. It currently has 12. It will soon have 10. However, the fall line of the river area, which is where we are today, it's basically everything that stretches from West Point, Georgia, near where Interstate 85 crosses it, down to the city of Columbus in Georgia and Phoenix City in Alabama. That's about 42 miles of river. At one time, there were 8 dams. 8 of the 14 dams on this river occurred here in a 40-mile stretch. And so what you have here is a river that used to be a continuous ecosystem chopped up into a bunch of little ecosystems. We know from our work on shoal bass in the Flint River that these fish were accustomed to making long migrations in the spring to access spawning areas. In the Flint, on the upper Flint, we've had fish move as many as 160, 170 miles to access these spawning areas. Well, there's no reason to think that didn't used to happen in the Chattahoochee, but of course it no longer can and hasn't been that way for a long, long time. And so what happened is that when you dammed up this river, what you also did was you took a large continuous population of shoal bass and chopped it up into a bunch of small, isolated populations of shoal bass, only connected by downstream transport. And generally with hydroelectric dams, that's a rare thing, unless they pass as juveniles or larvae, which is also rare for a nest spawning species like a shoal bass or any black bass. It's more common for fish that their larvae and juveniles live out in the open water, like shad and walleye and such like that. Ecological theory tells us that small isolated populations of fish are more vulnerable to extinction. They're more vulnerable to just, going away from random awful events that may or may not have anything to do with mankind. Floods, droughts, extended cold spells, you name it. So what happened here was that you had a shoal bass population that was probably very resilient, but when it was able to travel up and down the river corridor, and now you have a bunch of small ones. I'm sure at one time there was a population of shoal bass below each one of those 8 dams that were located in the fall line region. By the time we first started studying these fish in 2009, so probably close to 100 years after the last of these dams were built, by the time we started that work, we found fish below only Langdale and Riverview dams up in the upper part, and below the 4 dams in Columbus, Oliver, North Highlands, City Mills, and Eagle Phoenix. They had been extirpated from West Point, below West Point Dam, below Bartlett's Ferry Dam and below Goat Rock Dam. We had no idea why, but we can guess. Something bad happened. Poor water quality, likely in case of West Point, and sometimes Bartlett's Ferry has some too, when they generate dam, because there's no oxygen in the depths where the turbines are located. So that's a possibility. But regardless of why, we definitely lost some populations by then. And since 2009, the fish below, well, when they took out the dams at City Mill and Eagle Phoenix, all those populations fish disappeared. We have no idea why, including the one below North Highlands, which is what we're looking at right now, is North Highlands Dam. The only one that was left was the one below Oliver Dam, which is above North Highlands, in this area anyway. And we watched that one slowly and surely dwindle down. We're not 100% sure why, honestly. But this is what happens when you chop up a population. You make it more vulnerable to extinction, and the fish population as a whole begins to go away or get overtaken by, in this case, non-native spotted bass hybrids, piecemeal, one population at a time, and the next thing you know, you have almost no populations left. And that is exactly what has happened here in the Chattahoochee. If you look at it on a basin-wide scale, you have a population of shoal bass in the Chattahoochee above Lake Lanier, and also some of the major tributaries, really only one that I know of, the Chestatee. So there's two up there. There's an introduced population that's still being maintained by stocking below Lake Lanier, or really more below Morgan Falls, right in downtown Atlanta. So you have three populations counting that introduced population there. Once you get below Atlanta, we are down to a very chilling number. There are three populations that we know of in tributaries to the Chattahoochee. The rest have been extirpated. And there are now three populations in the Chattahoochee itself that we know still exist. And that's the two below Langdale and the one below Oliver Dam. So if you want to know what happens, or what can happen, when we dam up rivers and streams, this is a great example of the consequences. And if this happened to shoal bass, it almost certainly happened to a number of species that are not studied nearly as well, and are also likewise suffering those kinds of things, such as blue stripe shiner, possibly Halloween darter if they ever existed down here, perhaps greater jump rock, a sucker species. But you get the idea. So the Chattahoochee does serve as a great example of this principle about what happens when you dam up rivers. It also serves as a warning to future generations, and not only that, to other countries, of the consequences of damming up their rivers and streams, may be more severe than they recognize. I had a good day here on the Chattahoochee today. I caught about 15 bass in 3 hours of fishing, but all but two of them were non-native spotted bass hybrids, mostly small. So imagine what this place was like 200 years ago, before these dams were here. Can you imagine what the shoal bass population must have been like here, with all these shoals and waterfalls that this place was supposed to have had, that are now lie beneath uncounted tons of water and reservoirs? It's a grim tale in many ways. It's a cautionary tale, and it's one that really has very few solutions in reality. But it is up to us as concerned citizens, as ethical anglers, as environmentalists, to do better, to do what we can to fix this situation and to do better in the future. And hopefully this is something that we will or have learned.